This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by founder of S-Jam Boxing, Mr. Adam Morallee. Adam, it's good to see you. How is everything?
All good, Josh. All good. Looking forward to some exciting fights coming up.
It's very good to hear. We know one of those exciting fights coming up is the return of the Juggernaut on the comeback trail. He takes on Dereck Chisora at the O2 at the end of July. What was it about the Dereck Chisora fight that appealed so much to you and the team?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you've got to put it a little bit in context. Joe Joyce beats Joseph Parker September 2022, and people rate him in their top three heavyweights in the world. He then obviously has his losses against Zhang, which weren't great, but a lot of heavyweights have done that. Usyk lost back to back. Joshua lost back to back to Usyk. Um, And then I think he's not been written off. I mean, he's still in most people's top tens, but I think he's kind of unfairly lower down the list. But he's got to show that he can come back. You see what Joe beat Dubois, see where Dubois is now. Joe Joyce is a top five world level heavyweight, and we need to show the public that. Obviously, his performance against Cash Ali, that was the one kind of getting rid of the ring rust and the cobwebs, wasn't brilliant. I mean, I think Joe would say that was a 6, 7 out of 10 performance max. We're working super hard in this camp to get back on that train, and in the lead up to this, we had negotiations in parallel with Bacoli and Chisora. Joe wanted both fights. There was a lot of nonsense spoken around the time of the Chisora press conference that we didn't want Bacoli. We did want Bacoli. We wanted Bacoli. We wanted Chisora. Both were good fights, and yeah, we like Chisora from the perspective, in particular, of what Dereck brings to a fight week and what Dereck brings to a fight, and he's a tough challenge.
And what are you expecting from Joe? Obviously, you mentioned the last performance not being the best. Are we going to see the best Joe Joyce against Dereck Chisora?
Yeah, I think we'll see definitely a better version of Joe than we saw against Cash Ali. I think Joe is rapidly improving on a lot of metrics that we set for him, and I think we will see a really solid performance against Dereck. Joe's world class quality, elite world class quality, is his engine and his ability to throw a lot of punches, championship rounds 10, 11, 12, and be as fit in those rounds as he was earlier on. If you look at him in the Parker fight, say, or even in Zhang 1, when their punch output starts to goes down, his remains constant. He remains constant through the rounds. In fact, starts to grow from round 3, 4 onwards. So that's what I want to see from Joe. Back to those stats.
And what will be the plan for Joe Joyce if he gets through Dereck Chisora? We know there's a lot of movement in the heavyweight division at the moment. What do you and the rest of the team want for Joe Joyce?
Okay, we have a great relationship with George and Frank Warren. They want him out in Saudi. They want him in the big Saudi fights. And obviously, if he'd have beaten Zhang, he'd have been there. And I think he needs a really good performance against Dereck. And we'll be back in those kind of big Saudi fights. You look at it's an interesting landscape with the world titles. I remember having chats with Joe probably, yeah, September 2022, like 2 years ago, about the WBO, and Joe was WBO interim. And it was like, don't worry, Joe, they'll call this mandatory soon. You're the mandatory, they'll call it soon. Fury Usyk's happening February 2023, and they'll call it straight after. I remember saying that to him. Here we are, June 2024, and I don't even think the IBF's called their mandatory.
Well, I mean, that says a lot there, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think what's going to happen in the heavyweight division is whatever Fury Usyk will happen again, and I think after that you'll see the actual fragmentation of the belts. I think it will happen in 2025, and at that point we want to be in the right position. So there are lots of fights we like. We like the Dubois fight, but obviously he's going on to he's looking at that Joshua fight, isn't he? I really like the Joseph Parker fight. I think that's a great rematch, and that's the one I'd really be trying to make. Joe v Joseph Parker too.
Also, you mentioned Daniel Dubois. When Joyce and Dubois first fought, the kind of thing was for the winner is that they'll move on to world level fights. I know we saw that with Joe, but when we look at how the careers have panned out, it's almost a bit surprising to see how far Daniel Dubois has come since then.
No, not at all. I mean, look, Daniel Dubois is a top level fighter. He's a brilliant fighter. He just met his match in Joe Joyce, and it was, is Daniel better now? I mean, I think on the comeback trail he fought Kevin Lerrone, didn't he? And he got dropped a few times. I think the lesson for everyone to learn from it is defeats don't define you, and you've got to look at comebacks kind of holistically. It's not just about, people after that Lerrone fight were saying he's finished, he's ruined, he's gone. Same with AJ. If you remember, AJ made his comeback after the Usyk defeat. I think it was against Franklin in April 2023. People are like, "What terrible performance! He's finished." Opinions change quickly. So I'm happy for Daniel. I'm happy for where he is. We know his management well. Some of my other boxers like Guido spar with him. I want him to do as well as possible because I want Joe to fight him again and take what he has.
And before we continue with the heavyweight talk, I just want to quickly turn back to Friday night where we saw Lerrone Richards back in the ring. Not the desired result, a bit of an upset result as he got stopped by Steed Woodall in the sixth round. What was the initial reaction in your mind?
I mean, it's just shock. I don't think I've ever, for managing fighters, I've never been as shocked by a result as that. Every manager manages boxers and you win some, you lose some. We went a year once undefeated with our stable, but I was completely shocked, to be honest. I mean, with all respect to Steve Woodall, Lerrone Richards is a world level fight. He beat Carlos Gongora comfortably, in my opinion. So it was very, very shocking. And, we got to support Lerrone at this time. Nissa Sauerland, shout out to him. His promoter's been amazing. And Lerrone will come again.
And when that time does come around for Lerrone to get back in the ring, it's still early days now. What's the plan going forward for Lerrone?
Look, I mean, someone of that level of skill, you might say, after a loss, you need a comeback, you need confidence, you need to fight certain people. I think there are questions for us whether we stay at 168 or we go up to 175. You could have a strategy where you go straight for big fights now and throw in and regain credibility in that manner. Wasserman a tremendous partner, and we had a specific plan A laid out for Lerrone, and now we've got to look at plan B. So I think it probably involves either going in at a much higher level, perhaps at a higher weight, or more of a rebuilding process, maybe one or two fights. But Lerrone Richards remains a world level fighter despite this defeat.
What would you rather do in obviously with Lerrone and you being his manager? Would you rather stick at 168 or does it sound appealing to step up and weight to 175?
I think the thing is the thing that's appealing about 175 is the amount of top level British boxers at that weight. And the public likes all British fighters. You saw it with Buatsi Aziz. They're great scraps. I've watched Lerrone spar Josh Buatsi, who's a terrific guy who I've got a ton of respect for. They are both world level British fighters at 175 pounds. So I, as a manager, am inclined towards that. Oftentimes other people aren't. You want to be, I mean, Lerrone has won a world title, an IBO world title at 168. He wants to win another world title there and step up. We'll have to have a look, but I want to move my fighters towards the fights which present the greatest commercial opportunities for them.
And then just going back to the heavyweight division, I want to get your thoughts on some of the fights going around. Obviously, we've already briefly touched on it, Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. Looking at that fight on paper now, while there's no official announcement, who do you favour in that fight?
Absolutely great fight. Absolutely fantastic fight. Dubois a guy that thrives on confidence, and he's confident right now. AJ, after the Ngannou performance, looks back to his best. Brilliant fight. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sit on the fence here, but half of me thinks when I look at Joe Dubois, Joe won that fight because of his authority and because of his experience. And AJ has authority and experience. So you think if the two fighters are quite evenly matched, that authority and experience may trump it. Having said that, Daniel is 4 years on from the Joyce fight, and is a big puncher. And if he can gain AJ's respect, I mean, look, there's lots of stories about them sparring in GB. Yeah, I mean, it's AJ's experience against Dubois' one punch power, I think. But I don't know. It's a great fight. Probably favour AJ.
Something that's been a big talking point around Daniel's career for the last few years is the confidence, and most recently, this newly found confidence that he's got. What do you feel that main source is? Because he's been labelled all sorts on the come up and in the defeats to Joe and Usyk, but people are almost starting to forget them now.
Of course, that's what happens. People have short memories, um, especially with regards to boxing performances. They have very, very short memories. Don Charles, his trainer, Don Charles, terrific guy, very experienced, knows how to connect with people. I think that's big. He's got a good manager in Luke. He's a good guy. Yeah, it's his team. I mean, the thing sometimes about being in management in boxing is you're noticed when your boxer does badly. People blame on management, and when the boxer does well, it's like it's the boxer's position that's got him there. I think credit to his team, credit to his trainer, credit to his manager. He's a lot more confident now.
And then again, we've briefly mentioned this already, but the undisputed uh, Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury. A rematch seems to be set for December, but very recently, just last week, we saw a video emerge on social media of Tyson Fury being escorted out of a pub and then being on his knees, seemingly unable to get up. What do you make of seeing those types of videos surface on social media?
I think it's very dangerous to draw conclusions from a 30-second clip. You know, plenty of people get drunk at the weekend. And if you kind of took anyone and just took a video of them at the weekend and then showed their boss the next day, they could be embarrassed by it. You know, the pressure these guys live under is high. And I think that I wouldn't read too much into it. I wouldn't read too much into it. Tyson Fury is a phenomenal individual who has beaten so many things on his way back to the top, and I wouldn't read too much into it. I think the only thing you might read into it is that he's letting off a bit of steam. He's letting off a bit of steam, and he's shown that he can do that. He has incredible boxing talent. So if we were 1 month out, I'd probably read quite a lot into it.
Do you feel people are possibly reading this into this a lot more than what they should due to the history? And obviously, we've seen Tyson absent out of the ring in the past due to reasons like this.
Look, I think everyone's got to have an opinion, an instant opinion on everything. I don't think there's any nuance on anything anymore. You can look at that and say maybe he just wanted to let off some steam, but people want to see something and see it as the root of a wider problem, which is, oh, he's lost it again, he's drunk again, he's lost his mind, he's not going to fight Usyk. It's just the way we are now. Everyone's opinion has to be entirely on one side of the fence and very certain. Otherwise, it's not heard. And I think I disagree with that.
And then the rematch date is set for December 21st. We know a bit more about how the two compare now. Who do you side with going into the rematch?
First fight, I didn't have really high hopes for it as a spectacle, and I think it over delivered. Phenomenal fight. It was going one way, thought Fury was coming strong, and then Usyk showed his class. It's hard to look past Usyk again. I mean, I think Usyk AJ won. People thought it would be different too. It wasn't. Hard to look past Usyk, and I think in those very, very top level fights, it matters how the first one goes. I don't think people are going to be fundamentally different in the second. I see the same result.
And then just last couple bits. Devin Haney has blasted Matchroom on Twitter this week after them deciding not to participate in the purse bids for his fight with Sandor Martin. What do you make of that, especially when he is a promotional free agent?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's up to Matchroom, isn't it? I mean, you never really know that the promotional arrangements of top level boxers generally tend to be very complicated. And they tend to do one-off deals with big promoters or really promote themselves. I think Matchroom have come out and said Devin was self-promoted, like we'll bid for it if we want to bid for it. There's no obligation. So if that's and I'm sure that's true, but I don't know why Devin Haney's kind of so outraged. It's perhaps doesn't feel great for him that people don't want to bid for his fight.
And then we've obviously had a bit more news on the drug testing and whether Garcia was innocent or not. It's come out that apparently the result is going to get overturned, to which Ryan Garcia has stated that he's going to retire from the sport now. What do you make of that statement from
I
Ryan?
missed that actually. Sorry, the result is going to get overturned. They're going to say it wasn't a positive sample.
No, so the result of the fight itself is going to get overturned.
Oh,
Apparently, it was a
really?
positive
Sorry.
sample.
It'll be a no
So the fight's going to
contest.
get turned to a no contest or a
Yeah.
disqualification.
Yeah, and what? Ryan's going to retire. I saw him right on Twitter. He said he's going to
That's what
retire.
that's what he said. He's come out and said he's going to retire.
When you have the presence of these substances in your bloods, it's very hard for anyone to deny that with the level of testing we have. I think Ryan went round their houses on it, claimed it was in a supplement. They came out and said it wasn't in a supplement. he should fight it through the courts. That's what people should do. There are tribunals set up to hear this stuff. He should fight through the courts and declare his innocence. I think it's a little bit childish to have this and just retire and throw your toys out the pram.
What do you make of just the whole way that he's handled? Obviously, he's been very active on social media, but in a bit of a bizarre way these last few months since the fight was announced. What do you make of the behaviour on
It's
Ryan?
erratic. I think it's erratic behaviour, but then I think you have to look at the commercial background, and a guy like Ryan Garcia, when he does these things, he becomes more noticed and he becomes more interesting. Ryan Garcia can walk away for a year, come back, and they're still interested in him. People still want to do things with him. People still want him to be involved in big fights. He'll be a big name in 2 years. He can retire and come back. And there are some top level fighters out there that are more skilled than Ryan Garcia, live the life more than Ryan Garcia, don't do erratic things, and yet people don't want to watch them box. It's an entertainment sport. So Ryan Garcia is retiring. I'm sure we'll see him back because it's a sport of entertainment.
Well, Adam, I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for talking to
Gosh.
Seconds Out.
See you later, mate.